In this second life. When I opened my eyes. It was the year Julian. Now drive. Julian, Ninian, graduated. To entice him. Yunnan University, and University. In my hometown at Yun City. Had promised him a spousal job opportunity. High school classmates congratulated me one after another. Laurel. The hard work has paid off. Only I knew that the sweetness I had earned with 8 years of blood, sweat, and tears would soon be fed to Celia, the daughter of his mentor. Sorry. Laurel. Julian said with a troubled expression. Your adult education degree really doesn't match Celia's qualifications for this opportunity. I looked at his familiar face. And my heart felt like stagnant water. This time. I didn't throw a tantrum or fight to keep the job. Fine. I nodded readily. Let's get divorced. Julian grabbed my arm. It's just a fake divorce. After 3 years. When Celia becomes permanent. We'll remarry. Later. I went to Shenzhen to complete the studies I had abandoned, and in my past life. I didn't repeat the tragedy of dying alone in a rented apartment. When we reunited. Julian's eyes were bloodshot. His feelings deep and sincere. Wasn't it supposed to be a fake divorce? I've waited for you for 6 years. Let's remarry. I looked up and couldn't help but laugh. Remarry? Julian. Have you and your little junior taken your divorce certificate? I realized I had been reborn and was now standing in a kitchen. The air thick with smoke. Frying vegetables. Julian's arm slithered around my back. His breath deliberately hot against my neck. Laurel. His voice was thick and sticky. That job position. Can you give it to Celia? No sooner had he finished speaking. Zuzz. The hot oil splashed, searing my hand. I gasped. My breath catching. But he remained like a block of wood. His mind elsewhere. Focused on the words he would say next. You have a low education level. If you go. You'll probably end up as a dormitory supervisor. Celia could be a lecturer. She knows how to play her cards right and will compensate you financially. But. His grip tight and around my waist. If we want that position. We'll have to pretend to divorce first. I promise. After 3 years. When she gets promoted. We can remarry. I pressed my hand to my stomach. The pain from my terminal cancer in my past life. The agony of dying from it. Seemed to linger in my memory. Torturing me. 1,000 times worse than the burn on my hand. In my previous life. When I was diagnosed with cancer. I desperately sought Julian's help. But he didn't listen to a word I said. Instead. He humiliated me first. Those venomous words still echoed in my ears. Laurel. I'm already a university professor. Look at you, an adult with a bachelor's degree. Do you expect me to stay with you? Is that fair? Even though you worked for 8 years to pay for my education. I didn't take the house when we divorced. That's my compensation to you. I've married Celia now. She's the one who truly matches my life's journey. Please. Don't come bothering me anymore. He had security throw me out of the school and told them not to let me back in. In the end. I died alone in a rental house in the city's outskirts. How stupid I was. Thinking that catching a man would secure my happiness. How could happiness be tied to such a cold-hearted, indifferent man? Click. I turned off the stove and rushed to the sink. I twisted the tap, letting cold water wash over the burn. Trying to douse the searing pain in my memory. Fine. I turned around, decisively nodding. Let's divorce. Julian froze. The cutting words from my past life, how I wasn't good enough for him. How I'd embarrass him at school, choked in his throat. His eyes wide and in disbelief. In my past life. I would have been crying. Howling. I would have counted how. For 8 years. I stayed up late and worked overtime to support his studies. To pay his mother's medical bills. In the end. His conscience pricked. And I finally followed him to Yin University. Looking back. It was clear. Celia's father was the deputy dean. How could she care about a job opportunity for a spouse? She had always been after Julian. A few months after we arrived. She also got a position at Yin University. After she joined. The gossip about my adult bachelor's degree spread through the school. My education level became a source of mockery for Julian at the university. We fought repeatedly. And Celia always knew how to comfort him just after our arguments. Our marriage inevitably came to an end. His voice was dry as sandpaper. Do you really want this? He still hadn't noticed my burned hand. His eyes glued to mine, trying to dig out my pain. But there was nothing. Not a single trace. I calmly took out a tissue and slowly wiped my wet hands. Why not? You have the money, don't you? I raised my eyes and forced a smile. Dorm supervisor? Sounds so dull. I love money. Laurel. He flinched, his face contorting as if stabbed by those two words. Celia is the daughter of a teacher. I owe the teacher a great debt. And I'll compensate. Enough. I snapped, cutting him off. Who doesn't love money? Last month, I worked overtime for half a month to pay for your mother's medical bills. If you really cared, you wouldn't have made me work those night shifts. Instead, you're here dodging responsibility for her. But. Julian tried to resist. There's no but. I stepped forward, my gaze sharp as a knife. Julian. You promised me. I supported your studies. And you promised to take care of me for the rest of my life. 2 months after graduation. You were still feeding off me. This job opportunity is your repayment. Each word struck like a chisel. I'll give up the job. But the money? I think this opportunity is worth 300. 300. Not a penny less. If you give me the money, I'll sign. If not, we'll drag this out. Let's see who can outlast whom. Julian's face turned ashen. His body stiffened. I continued preparing the wilted vegetables, sitting down to spoon some milky fish soup into my bowl, sipping it slowly, a satisfied sigh escaping my lips. I raised an eyebrow and asked, "Care to join me for dinner?" He stared at me as if I were a monster. The steam from the pot blurred his face. No, Celia booked a room at the guest house to celebrate my securing the job. All the right people are there. You. Oh, I didn't look up. Sounds good. Don't forget the key. If you die, I'm not coming to pick you up. The air froze instantly. No tears. No fight for dominance? Wasn't I the idiot who rushed to pick him up that stormy night? All the plans for comfort, arguments, and compromises. Every script had collapsed. My calmness unsettled him more than any reaction he could have imagined. He felt anxious, suffocated, and furious. Still standing there like a doorman? I frowned. Isn't it late for the main character to show up? Julian grabbed the keys from the shoe rack. Bang. The door slammed shut, releasing his pent-up fury. I lowered my head, sipping another spoonful of warm soup. So fresh. So sweet. The clock's hands pointed to 2 a.m. Julian stumbled in, reeking of alcohol. When he saw me, sitting silently on the sofa, his tensed shoulders relaxed, and a barely noticeable smile of satisfaction appeared at the corner of his mouth. He let out a long breath. Look, Laurel was still the same foolish woman who treated him like her life. Even though he came home drunk in the dead of night, she would still wait. A tiny, self-righteous thoughtfulness emerged. Don't wait up so late next time. Get some rest earlier. He staggered toward the kitchen, searching for the bowl of hangover soup that was always kept warm in the past. The kitchen was empty and cold. The stove was cold. The pot was cold. The comforting, warm soup he expected to find had vanished. He stopped in his tracks, turning suddenly, the false warmth on his face dissipating with the alcohol and fury. Laurel. His voice rose, laced with indignation and anger. You've been home all night. And you couldn't even make me a bowl of hangover soup? I didn't respond. Instead, I pushed the divorce agreement toward him. Who said I'd been idle? This is the divorce agreement I prepared. If there's nothing wrong, sign it. What is this? He was utterly shocked, his voice full of confusion and displeasure. Didn't we agree on a fake divorce? What's all this? I raised my chin slightly, the light catching a trace of mockery in my eyes. A fake divorce? Didn't we really get a divorce certificate? He choked, then irritably pushed the papers aside. But we're still living together. Still a family. He even forced a small, reassuring smile. I've already talked to Celia. Since it's her first time here, she'll stay with us for now. Don't worry. I'll be working. and you can just enjoy yourself at home, focusing on helping me and Celia manage the household. He spoke with increasing ease, as if painting a beautiful picture. Celia even complimented your cooking, saying she'll be enjoying delicious meals from now on. Under the lights. That face, ading my obsessure, which once captivated me, now twisted into its ugliest form. He expected me to serve him and Celia? How dare he say such a thing? My fingers gently tapped the agreement on the coffee table. Since we're getting a divorce certificate, you and Celia will eventually need a real marriage certificate. So, I locked eyes with him, speaking slowly. Shouldn't we settle my rightful assets now? Or will you leave it for later when you and Celia get divorced, and let her share my portion? Julian's face instantly soured. Laurel, that's too harsh. How could Celia possibly care about our little possessions? Oh? I let out a soft laugh. Isn't it true that a fair account should be settled between close relatives? You're not going to sign? I leaned slightly forward, applying undeniable pressure. Then I think the dormitory and at Yen University the position you look down on wouldn't be too bad. Fine. I'll sign. I'll sign. As if trying to escape the awkwardness, he grabbed the pen in a hurry, barely looking at the contents, and scribbled his signature with a flourish, slamming the pen down afterwards. I watched him sign without any emotion inside. He was so eager, so dismissive, believing I couldn't live without him. So he didn't even notice that I had written to leave him with nothing. After signing, he suddenly stood up, his body tense with frustration. I've had too much to drink and I don't want to bother you. I'll sleep in the study tonight. This was his usual cold violence. In my past life, I had been so manipulated by him, so insecure. I dreaded even the thought of being apart from him. Whenever he suggested sleeping in the study, I would desperately apologize and try to please him. This time, I simply replied with a flat, barely even glancing at him. No apology or plea came, and he stood frozen, shocked. The air was thick with silence. A few seconds later, in a fit of humiliation and rage, he spun around and staggered into the study, the sound of the door slamming echoing through the room. Bang! The cup on the coffee table shook violently. I stood up and returned to the bedroom, locking the door behind me. Carefully, I examined the graduate school acceptance letter I had hidden. Shenzhen University. Masters in English Translation. The dim light made the paper glow softly around the edges. Images from my past life flashed through my mind. I had been terrible at all subjects except for English and Chinese. So after high school, I didn't get into university. Meanwhile, Julian, my boyfriend in class, had excellent grades and was accepted into a prestigious school, Hainan University. But his father had passed away early, and his mother was frequently ill. I, from a broken family, had no one who cared about my grades. So, we agreed I would work to support his education, and once he graduated, he would repay me, to make me feel more secure. Once we reached the legal marriage age, he took me to get a marriage certificate, but in his 4th year, he applied for a direct PhD program, and I had to keep working. As I watched his education level rise, I began to fear that I wouldn't be able to match up to him. So in my spare time, I taught myself a degree and secretly signed up for graduate school exams behind his back. In my past life, I excitedly handed him the acceptance letter. What I got in return was a disdainful glance and the sound of the letter being casually thrown into the trash. A graduate student from a third-rate university? No one at our school even bothers to look at that. Laurel, stop wasting time. Be a good wife. Stay behind. And I'll fight for you. Fight? In my past life, it was he who cruelly pushed me into the abyss. My finger gently traced the raised school emblem on the letter. This time, I didn't tell Julian about my acceptance. My battlefield wasn't in anyone's kitchen or at anyone's feet. It was in Shenzhen, at the very university he had looked down upon. I would carve out an unshakable future for myself. The day for the agreed divorce arrived. I had arrived early at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Julian showed up with Celia. Celia, dressed in high-end brands, couldn't hide a subtle sneer when she saw my worn clothes. Sis-in-law, she said with a fake smile. handing me a paper bag. Compensation. 30,000 cash. Count it? I took the heavy bag but didn't look at it. Celia snorted softly. If it weren't for Julian. Do you really think you'd ever have a chance to touch so much money in your life? My fingers clenched tightly. I raised my eyes. My gaze cold as it swept over her. This opportunity was earned with 8 years of blood, sweat, and tears. I took a step closer. Do you believe I'll shout out right now? So everyone in the hall can see how Celia's daddy's little girl buys other people's husbands? Celia's face turned pale instantly. Julian's anger flared. Laurel. Shut up. I snapped. Let's just get the certificate. Grabbing the paper bag. I turned toward the counter. Sign the agreement. Leave fingerprints. Get the certificate. Julian watched me, hoping to see some sign of pain or longing on my face. There was nothing. Only relief. Celia pulled him by the arm, and they quickly moved to the next marriage registration counter. The process replayed again. Celia held the red marriage certificate in her fingers, smiling sweetly as she nestled against Julian. I took a photo of the scene. This moment worth recording. Julian took the certificate. He turned and looked at me, his gaze complex. A hint of guilt? But more than that. It was the reassurance he felt entitled to. Laurel. Just 3 years. It'll be over soon. His tone was so confident. Celia clung even tighter. I tugged the corner of my lips into a mock smile. Clear the money. Then leave. Turning. I tightly gripped my divorce certificate and leather bag. My steps light. That evening, Julian returned home to find me casually curled up on the couch watching a variety show. I'm sleeping in the study. He threw out the cold violence again. Fine. I didn't take my eyes off the screen. Bang. The door slammed as he stormed into the room. And next morning, Julian saw the open suitcase in the living room. And his expression darkened. What's going on now? I'm reporting to Celia next week. Who are you packing for? Do you want to go with us? Now Celia and I are the legal couple. What are you? Are you trying to embarrass us in front of the whole school? Once we're settled, I'll send you the address. But you can't show up at the school. I closed the suitcase expressionlessly. Who said I'm going to report? He choked. Just going to relax. I dragged the suitcase out. The ticket to Shenzhen already booked the night before. The money was in my hands. And I didn't want to stay here another moment. He frowned and stopped me. Are you done? What about you alone? Just going to a resort, I said dismissively. He grabbed the handle of the suitcase, furrowing his brow. Which resort? When will you be back? His scrutinizing gaze swept my face, trying to find any sign of anger. Not sure. I gave a slight pull, freeing the suitcase from his grip. I'm just clearing my head. I'll be back once I'm done. He looked at my side profile. Unusually calm, even distant. The unease that had been nagging at me suddenly grew larger. Something seemed different. But the ingrained pattern of thinking I had developed over the years quickly suppressed that doubt. He believed I was upset over the divorce and would eventually return to this home. Bit tension in his lips loose, and a little as he irritably let go of my arm. Save some money. Don't buy useless things. Come back early. The wheels of the suitcase hummed softly as they rolled across the ground. I didn't look back. Behind me, his phone rang suddenly. He picked it up immediately, his voice softening. Celia? Want to have breakfast? Sure. I'll be down in a moment. The call ended. He glanced at the empty hallway. The unease quickly dissipated by his new wife's prompt. It's fine. She'll always come back. I dragged my suitcase around the corner. Inside, it carried a heavy 300. There was also the 200. He had just transferred to me last week for settling into University. The suitcase will spun lightly, rolling over the shattered 8 years of time. 300,000 and cash and 200. Settlement money. Exactly 500. 8 years of youth for 500. Not the same broken house from my past life. Sold off and still unable to clear the debts. I'd say it was worth it. At the airport, I threw away my phone card. Goodbye, Julian. 6 years later. I returned to my homeland after being invited to inspect Yun City's poverty alleviation project. In a crafts workshop during the tour, I ran into Tiffany, a high school classmate who was working there. She eagerly chatted with me, her eyes filled with envy almost spilling over. Laurel, you were right to cling to Julian. The winning stock. I heard he's now a well-known professor at Ying University. I paused. I divorced Julian a long time ago. Tiffany froze. Impossible. At the last reunion, when everyone asked about you, he never mentioned that you were divorced. She pursed her lips and shook her head. Us women without a degree. What else can we do if we don't rely on men to get ahead? Relying on a man is a skill. You don't need to distance yourself from Julian. I darkened my expression. Speaking calmly. When and don't need anyone else to live. We carve our own path. And the world will naturally widen. Tiffany glanced away, offering a perfunctory nod, her smile not reaching her eyes. Clearly, hadn't fulfilled way and sigh. She didn't believe my words. I had no intention of exchanging pleasantries with her and quickly moved toward another workshop. After the tour, it was time for dinner. The government officials hosting the visit invited the group to dine at a nearby hot spring resort. I had a video meeting to attend, so I joined them after finishing the call in the car and entered the resort. As I was searching for the private room Ruby had sent me, a clear, melodious voice called out to me. Waiter, could we please have a pot of Longjing tea for our table? Since I had dressed in matching attire for the tour of the ethnic handicraft factory, I was mistaken for a waitress. I turned around. Madame, Lalomaire. I'm not. Laurel? I didn't expect to run into Celia right away. Sitting beside her was Julian, who looked pained. Celia scanned me from top to bottom, her lips curling into a high, mocking smile. Some people run off with money, and now they're reduced to serving tables. Julian furrowed his brows. His eyes filled with mixed emotion: surprise, pity, and that a low sigh, and a trace of scorn. As if saying she deserved it. Laurel, we bumped into each other. Come sit down and have a meal with us. Celia nudged Julian with her elbow. Julian. She's just a waitress now. Is it appropriate for her to sit with us? She might get fined for sitting with us. She turned to the others at the table and laughed lightly. Let me introduce everyone. This is Julian's ex-wife. Ex-wife, a conveniently vague title. I truly regretted not keeping my divorce certificate with me. Right now would have been the perfect time to pull it out and slap her face with it. This is Laurel. Celia continued, her tone dripping with disdain. She has no degree, no knowledge, and once ran off with our Julian's money. She shot a pointed glance at me. Seems like that money is all gone now. A man at the table, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, leered at me. A waitress? What a shame, considering it's a legitimate profession. Could this beautiful waitress please bring me some hot water? The table chuckled awkwardly, clearly enjoying the sight of a supposed high-level intellectual acting so disgustingly crude. I remained still, not reacting. The man in glasses lost his composure and slammed the table in anger. Where's the manager? Fire this waitress. Julian furrowed his brows and grabbed my wrist. Stop it. Laurel. It's just a glass of water. Apologize later. And I'll make sure he doesn't file a complaint. He thought he was helping me out of this situation. I suddenly yanked my arm away from him. I'm not. Not what? Celia interrupted. Are you going to say you're a customer? Do you think you can afford it here? Being a waitress isn't shameful. You don't need to cover for yourself. Laurel. The sleazy man pushed his glasses up. Labor has no high or low. But it must be honest. The whole table stared at me, eager to see my awkwardness as the waitress pretending to be a customer. Where's the manager? Why haven't they come? The man in glasses started up again. Julian looked at me, his gaze filled with helplessness, as if saying, I can't help you if you don't know how to appreciate the opportunity. Laurel. CO. You should have had me meet you at the door. Ruby's voice came from behind me. He stepped forward to guide me. Xin Lam Pavilion is this way. I followed Ruby as we left. One of the women at Julian's table, a plump lady, called out to Ruby in surprise. Ruby. What are you doing here? Ruby turned to look at her in confusion. Who are you? The woman introduced herself warmly. I'm Clara from Yen University's Department of Culture and Communication. I was part of the reception team when you came with the secretary last time. Ruby's expression cleared in recognition. Apologies. Today I'm accompanying Laurel, the CIO, on an inspection. We'll catch up later when we have time. Laurel? The CIO? The woman was stunned. Celia's face turned red with embarrassment. Julian looked at me in disbelief. Ruby. Oblivious. Best. Wait. Do you all know Laurel, the CEO well? I left first. I don't know them. The night was thick with darkness as I finished the dinner and stepped out of the restaurant. Julian emerged quickly from the shadows and walked up to me. I'll take you back. He reached for my bag. His gesture familiar. As if we hadn't divorced yet. I turned my body to avoid him. No need. Julian frowned, his voice carrying a note of reproach. 6 years. And you're still so stubborn. Back then. You left without a word. And now you won't even let me make it up to you? Make it up? I almost laughed out loud. Julian. The divorce agreement was signed by your own hand. The marriage certificate was obtained by you and Celia together. Don't you find it ridiculous that you're acting all sentimental now? His face shifted slightly. But he stubbornly persisted. That was just a temporary measure. Celia. Julian. A delicate, high-pitched voice interrupted him. Celia hurried over. But as soon as she saw me, a flicker of panic passed through her eyes. She immediately hooked her arm through Julian's, playfully swaying. My promotion materials aren't finished yet. The dean said they have to be submitted next week. Julian, momentarily distracted by her, appeared dazed for a moment. As if suddenly jolted back to reality. He looked at me. His tone urgent. Laurel. Just give me a little more time. Celia's probation is over. But if we divorce now, it'll affect her promotion assessment. Huh. I scoffed, shaking my head slowly. Julian. You don't need to explain anything to me. We've been divorced for a long time. He quickly tried to explain. It's a fake divorce. Oh? 6 years ago. You said we would remarry once Celia became permanent. Now she's permanent. And yet you're still tied to her. He hurriedly tried to pry Celia's arm from around his. We're not tied together. It's that her promotion requires a stable marriage. Enough. I interrupted. I'm already married. His pupils constricted before he sneered. Who are you trying to fool? You came back because. Because of what? I raised an eyebrow. Because you're getting divorced? He fell silent. Celia tugged at him. Julian. Let's go back and sort out the materials. Julian was being pulled by her. But his gaze was still fixed on me. As if trying to find a crack in my expression. Laurel. You still care about me. Don't you? How shameless. I didn't bother to reply. I turned and walked toward the parking lot. Behind me. Celia's sharp voice echoed. She's just trying to rile you up. Don't fall for it. Julian didn't follow. But he didn't believe my words either. Back at the hotel. I dialed a video call. The screen lit up, revealing a handsome face. His brows soft. A smile tugging at the corners of his lips. How did the inspection go? Silas's voice was deep and gentle. I leaned back on the sofa, feeling a sense of relaxation. I ran into some old acquaintances today. It's been a bit annoying. He raised an eyebrow. Do you want me to come over? I shook my head. No need. It's just a small matter. Mia asleep? Just put her to bed. He shifted the camera, showing a small figure curled up on the bed, clutching the plush rabbit I'd bought for her. She was looking for you again today. I couldn't help but smile. Still about a week of inspection left. All right. We'll wait for the lady of the house to come home. After hanging up, I gazed out the window at the night, a sense of peace settling in my chest. This is home. No need to humble myself for anyone. There's someone here who gently says, I'm waiting for you to come home. The next morning, while I was sorting through the inspection report, the hotel front desk called. Laurel. There's a Julian here to see you. He says you're old acquaintances. My fingers froze. Tell him to wait. 10 minutes later. I arrived at the lobby. Julian was sitting at a booth. Drinking coffee. Exuding an air of an elite. At the sound of footsteps. He turned his head, his eyes showing a fleeting glimmer of astonishment. Laurel. He put down his coffee cup and stood up, softening his voice. Yesterday my friends were rude, and I'm here to apologize on their behalf. Let's talk properly today. Talk about what? I replied coldly. He took a deep breath. I did some checking. Turns out you've done quite well in Shenzhen these past few years. Your Tongyi Group is now one of the top B2C e-commerce companies. He paused. A hint of self-satisfaction in his eyes. Now. You're more than worthy of me. I almost laughed out loud. Julian. I stared him down. I told you yesterday. I'm already married. He smiled confidently. The corners of his lips curling up. Don't lie to me. You came back because. Can you stop being so self-centered? I cut him off with a sneer. I came back because the government invited me to participate in a poverty alleviation project. And by the way, do you think your good little apprentice knows you're here looking for me? What? Now that I'm doing well, you want to throw your little apprentice aside and take me back? His eyes reddened. Looking sincere. It's not like that. The one I've always loved is you. Laurel, oh, I regret it. If I had known you would leave without saying a word. Regret? No, he was just unwilling. Unwilling to accept that the woman he once looked down on now stood at a height he could no longer reach. Julian. Stop deceiving yourself. I raised my hand and called over to security guards. Laurel? This man is harassing me. Please take him away. I said coldly. Also, make sure to remember his face. He is not allowed to enter the hotel during my stay. Julian looked at me in panic. Laurel, you. The security guards already had his arms in their grip. Like my past self. He was thrown out. He turned around in disbelief. As if he couldn't accept that I really didn't want him anymore. My phone vibrated. Silas had sent a message. Have you had breakfast? Mia says she misses you. I replied. About to eat. Tell Mia. Mommy misses her too. My high school class monitor somehow got hold of my contact details. He heard I was back in town and repeatedly called, inviting me to a class reunion. Laurel. Now that you're the president of Laurel Group, you've probably forgotten all about us old classmates? Out of consideration for the classmates, I agreed to join them for a meal, but made it clear that Julian was not to be invited. The monitor promised over the phone that he wouldn't bring Julian. On the day of the reunion, I arrived at the restaurant as promised. But when I pushed open the door to the private room, I found Julian speaking. That relocation fee should just be considered as compensation for her efforts. My face instantly soured. The classmates around me looked at me with disdain. Zoe, who used to sit behind me, grabbed my hand. Laurel. Julian kept himself pure for you for 6 years. Where can you find such devotion? I shook her hand off and walked straight to the seat. What was Julian just saying about me? Was he saying I ran off with his relocation fee? I pulled out my phone and found the photo of the divorce agreement I had saved in the cloud. This is the divorce agreement he signed. It clearly states that he leaves with nothing after the divorce. Guess why? Despite being so shrewd, he agreed to leave with nothing and divorce me? Because he said he was going to give the spouse job to his apprentice. Celia. How could a spouse's position be given to someone else? Of course. He had to divorce me first. I then pulled out the photo I took on the day we divorced. When he and Celia eagerly got their marriage certificate right in front of me. I pointed to the date on the electronic screen of the Civil Affairs Bureau in the photo. On the day he divorced me. They immediately went and got their marriage certificate in front of me. The room erupted in astonished chatter. Julian's face turned deathly pale. I cast a cold glance at his ashen face. He suddenly stood up. We agreed on a fake divorce. Once Celia gets promoted, we'll remarry. Remarry? I sneered. Did you and Celia even get divorced? You left without a word. I thought you weren't coming back. So it's only natural that you really married your junior? I continued to mock him. Are you playing the faithful husband today? Trying to have an affair? I turned and shot a glare at the class monitor. The class monitor froze. At a complete loss. He said you two were fighting. And asked me to help reconcile. I grabbed my bag and stood up to leave. I respected our old friendship. And this is how you treat an old classmate? Behind me. Julian was being yelled at. Julian. You've lied to Laurel. And you've lied to us. Scumbag. Bah. Ungrateful trash. Julian chased me to the elevator. I'll divorce her immediately. I pressed the close door button. Whether you divorce or not is none of my concern. I raised my hand and showed him the dime and ring on my left hand. I told you before. I'm already married. You don't even measure up to a single hair of my husband. 9. The inspection in Yen City ended successfully. Though I encountered some unpleasant people. The results of the inspection were enough to offset those frustrations. I closed the inspection report and decided to give preferential treatment to the Yen City manufacturers. After signing the contract tomorrow morning, I would finally be able to return home. Thinking of me back home. A faint smile unconsciously tugged at my lips. Buzz buzz. My phone vibrated urgently. It was Ruby. I answered. And Ruby's voice sounded unusually tense. President Laurel. Have you offended anyone recently? I furrowed my brows. Offended anyone? What do you mean? The internet is in an uproar. Someone posted a rumor. Slandering you. Saying you've gotten where you are by selling your body. They claim you have no degree. And that a woman like you could never reach the top of the industry without getting dirty. And it gets even more absurd, they're saying that I have an inappropriate relationship with you. And that our cooperation was because I opened a back door. It's utterly ridiculous. He paused. There's a lot of pressure from above. I'm sorry. But we need to wait until things are cleared up before signing the contract. My throat tightened. And I almost couldn't speak. I had been invited back to invest. And I had to rely on a backdoor? After a brief moment of suffocating silence, Ruby quickly reassured me. Don't worry. We've already contacted the criminal police. And the tech team is doing everything they can to track down the person who spread the rumors. The call ended. I opened the search bar. As soon as I typed Laurel, the suggested search terms immediately appeared. Slut. Betted everyone. Slept her way to the CEO position. My heart sank heavily. I found the source of the malicious post with no effort. In-depth investigation into Tongyi Technologies, female CI's rise. Sleeping with clients to become an industry leader. I clicked on it. And the content was vile. The person ridiculed my adult education degree, slandering it freely. The most absurd part was the fabricated series of foreign investors I had never even heard of. They claimed, with conviction, that I used my body to secure orders. It was pure nonsense. Tongyi was a purely B2C platform. Where were these supposed order transactions? But the tide of madness had already risen. And no one cared about the truth. On the body of a female CEO from a relatively unknown company. Labels and curiosity were the real hotspots. Behind the screen, twisted faces sought an outlet to vent their most depraved voyeurism and envy. Yo, isn't this the girl from years ago? Number 9? Now she's dressed up as a CIO? Really moving up in life. The person above detailed Number 9. I have a friend who wants to know more. I once ran into this woman in a hotel elevator. Saw her hugging a black guy. TCH. Tastes sure are heavy. Really jealous of women. Just open your legs. And you can climb the ranks. Let's make it clear. Normal whim and don't want to be associated with this trash. The disgusting words pierced through my eyes. Stabbing at my heart. Buzz buzz. My phone vibrated again. I took a deep breath and pressed the answer button. Silas's calm but urgent voice came through. Laurel. He called my name like throwing a lifeline. Don't look at that trash. I'm coming over to be with you right now. He paused. His voice steady and strong. I've already made arrangements. We've just had Silas's family release a statement. At 8 p.m. tonight, Silas's family live stream will feature an exclusive interview with Tongyi Technologies founder, Ms. Laurel. My team will be joining me. Laurel, lol. We'll address this head-on. Silas arrived with his team. And the professional crew immediately began setting up the equipment. He didn't say anything. Just tightly held my hand. Offering me a sense of security. I never expected that the first time I would go live would be to respond to malicious rumors. The live stream host, Lena, sat across from me, her expression serious. President Laurel, there are malicious accusations online, especially rumors targeting your personal history. Do you have anything you'd like to say? I pulled out my first degree certificate and laid it on the round table in front of the camera. The camera zoomed in instantly. An adult higher education bachelor's degree. The bullet comments scrolled across the screen. Wow. It's confirmed. Adult degree. Fake university. You dare show a bot diploma? Probably bought with your body. Adult degree. So deep. Everyone knows what it means. Heh. This is the level of someone who can run a company? Must have great skills in bed. I glanced at the comments. Then spoke. Yes, living fulfilled my obsession. This is where I started. You think it's worthless? You think it's from a fake school? Let me tell you. For this piece of paper, I worked on the assembly line, turning screws during the day, and stayed up late studying under the light in my rented room. While others were out on weekends for dates, watching movies, and shopping, I was always studying. This degree you think is worthless was the only path I had at the time to improve myself. This degree is stained with my blood and sweat, not the filthy water flowing in some people's minds. A new batch of comments flashed. Working by day. Studying by night. Respect. What's wrong with an adult degree? Earned it through my own effort. I pulled out the second certificate. The camera zoomed in again. The name of the university on the cover was clearly visible, Shenzhen University. I opened the pages. Master's degree certificate. Laurel has earned a master's degree in translation English. The bullet comment shifted dramatically. Wait. Shenzhen University's master's in translation? What? Can you really get into Shenzhen University for a master's degree with that kind of background? How fierce is that? I'm in awe. This background is a perfect fit for cross-border work. Sister. You're the queen among queens. I traced my finger over Shenzhen University's emblem. My voice steady and powerful. Starting Tongyi was just a stroke of luck. I happened to ride the wave of the times. But during my graduate studies, I never allowed myself to slack off. Studying late into the night and giving 100,000% effort. For 3 years of grad school, I attended classes during the day and spent every evening in the library. At night, I worked with my team to brainstorm Tongyi's business model over and over again. The toughest moment was when Tongyi's servers crashed. We stayed up for 72 hours straight to fix them. And when we got tired, we just lay down on cardboard on the floor for a quick nap. Why work so hard? I squinted my eyes. Because our team wants Tongyi to speak through its service and technology, not through the dirty imaginations of certain people. Lena zeroed in on the pain point and asked, so how do you explain the accusation that you sold your looks for 4 and big client orders? Sold my looks for orders? To whom? A sharp, quick laugh escaped me. Tongyi is a pure B2C platform, connecting individual buyers globally through technology. The people spreading rumors don't even understand Tongyi's business model, yet they're slinging dirt. The barrage of comments flooded the screen. Go, CEO Laurel. B2C platform company. Sleep with customers? What a joke. Using sexual resources to trade for retail orders? Whoever thought that it must have water in their brain? I'm an international student. I bought a $9.09 phone case from Tongyi. Does CEO Laurel need to service someone like me? Lena pressed on. So, you're saying the accusation was entirely fabricated? In the face of this gendered malice and insult, what do you have to say? Anger. My voice suddenly rose. For the pitiful worms hiding behind keyboards, who can only use their lower halves to fantasize. Are you really still clinging to that moldy script where a woman's success must be from selling her body? Our efforts. Studying late into the night. The professional certificates we earned through grit. The sharpness we showed when facing men across the negotiation table. Are we supposed to have all that erased with a single phrase, sleep your way up? What are you afraid of? Afraid that women can't stand up without your help? Afraid that the shackles that have been on us for thousands of years are about to be shattered by our own hands? The comments exploded. Feminist power filling the screen. Well said. Every time I get promoted, it's rumored I slept with the boss. I'm done with that. Tear their mouths apart with the law. CEO Laurel. I support your fight for justice. Sister. Well done. Tear those men's filthy mouths apart. Laurel's amazing. Female power is rising. I straightened my back, my gaze sharp as I stared into the camera. I've cleared the rumors. But the ones who started them, this isn't over. I'll trace the internet cable and drag out the rats hiding in the gutter. You will pay for every filthy word you've said. The lights in the live stream studio turned off, and a wave of exhaustion nearly consumed me. Silas was the first to steady me as I swayed. Laurel, you've worked hard. His voice was deep, filled with both concern and pride. I shook my head, standing firm with the strength of his arms supporting me. My phone buzzed in my bag. I pulled it out, and Ruby's weary voice came through. CEO Laurel. We found the person who spread the rumors. Ruby paused for a moment before continuing. The IP address is from the faculty dorms at Yunnan University. My heart sank. The feeling of premonition turned out to be true. The IP's real name is Julian, and the account used to post the rumors is registered to Celia. The cyber police are already on their way to Yunnan University. Julian. Celia? So the rats in the sewer were old acquaintances. Just then, my phone screen flickered again, this time showing an unknown number with a location from Yunnan City. I guessed who it might be and answered the call. Laurel. Is it really you? It's Julian. His voice was filled with fear. And there was a lot of background noise. The police are here. They're taking me to the station. Please forgive me this time. Can you drop the charges? I know I was wrong. Forgive? How ridiculous. On the other end of the line, I could hear Celia's sobs and the cold questions from the police. Laurel, please listen to me. He rambled. That post was from Celia. She hated you because I was going to divorce her. I saw the post after it went viral. I was just temporarily out of my mind, thinking that you'd been so cold to me. So I posted a few anonymous comments. It was just a few comments. I didn't mean to harm you. A few comments? Out of his mind? If I weren't CEO Laurel, but just a regular Laurel, would he have been crying and begging for forgiveness? Julian, I said, my voice chillingly calm. Save your confessions for the police. Without giving him a chance to speak again, I hung up the phone. The whole world suddenly felt silent. The next day, heading for Seltwad session. After signing contracts with a few manufacturers in Yunnan City, Silas and I returned home. As soon as the door opened, Mommy, Mia, with the scent of milk and sunshine, rushed into my arms, her small arms wrapping tightly around my neck. I missed you so much. Mommy. I greedily inhaled the scent of my daughter's hair. Behind me, Silas warmly pulled both Mia and me into his embrace. Months later, Ruby sent me a message. CEO Laurel. The People's Court of XX District in Yunnan City has ruled today. Both of them were convicted of defamation. Julian was sentenced to 1 year and 3 months. Celia 2 years. With immediate execution. Yunnan University also issued a notice expelling both of them. I put my phone down, my gaze briefly drifting over the family photo on my desk. The glow from the phone screen reflected in the picture frame, showing the 3 of us smiling together. In this second life, I finally grasped happiness firmly in my hands. The girl I had sponsored for 15 years was now holding my husband's arm, standing right in front of me. The car was twisted from the collision. I curled up, unable to breathe or speak. Blood streamed down my forehead, blurring my vision. I stared at the 2 people I knew better than anyone else. Rage rising in my chest, triggering a fit of coughing. My phone had long been flung out in the crash. The screen flickered. The evidence of Regina and Lyra embezzling company assets flashing repeatedly. All these years, I had schemed endlessly guarding against rival companies while keeping wary shareholders at bay. Yet in the end, I was betrayed by the 2 people I trusted most. Miss Lee. You're the one who taught me that you have to be ruthless to get things done. Although everything I have now is thanks to you, I earned it all back then with my own skills. The woman leaned down and whispered softly into my ear. The pungent smell of gasoline filled my nose. My vision went dark and my consciousness faded. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I selected a student for sponsorship. Ding. A message alert sounded like it came from far away. My consciousness slowly returned as I looked at the latest message on my phone. Hello, President Celine. This is the most underprivileged student at our school. If you could sponsor her, she and her mother would be incredibly grateful. 2 photos were attached at the end. In them, Wamea. A little girl wore a ragged pink coat patched layer upon layer. Her dry yellowish hair was tied into a limp ponytail at the back of her head, and her big eyes looked pitifully into the camera. The message was from someone marked as Orson Shampoo Village. Looking at this all too familiar scene, I realized I had returned to 15 years ago. That day was my 20th birthday. That year, my small company had just started turning a profit. It wasn't much, but enough to fulfill a long-held wish of mine, sponsoring a child from a poor rural area. After some digging, I learned about a primary school in Shampoo Village, West County. There was only one volunteer teacher there, and due to poor road conditions, the school lacked supplies and resources. I quickly got in touch with the teacher, Orson, and sent over educational and daily essentials. I also stated that I wanted to select the most disadvantaged child and sponsor them to a university. Soon, when out a say, Orson replied. The last time I had seen these same 2 photos, I was heartbroken. I immediately transferred a sum of money and, still uneasy, sent someone to bring the little girl to me. I hired an Annie, enrolled her in a good school, and supported her for 15 years. And now, looking at that same pitiful little face, I finally realized Regina had been a good actress from the start. In my past life, I treated her like my own sister. I sponsored her education and trusted her completely, even letting her join my company. It wasn't until I noticed her becoming too close to Lyra that I secretly launched an investigation. That's when I discovered she had long begun funneling company assets, buying houses for her mother and brother. Worse, from the beginning, she had taken someone else's place. She was never supposed to be the sponsored child. Strangely enough, back then, Regina's family was actually one of the wealthiest in Shampoo Village. Yet she was the one Orson recommended. None of the other students objected either. Before I could finish my investigation, Regina and Lyra had orchestrated a car crash and killed me. Now that I had a second chance, I would find out the truth, what really happened back then, and where the girl who was supposed to be sponsored ended up. Alright. Sorry, Orson. I've been busy lately. I'll reply later. After sending the message, I immediately dialed my assistant. Book me a flight to West County, as soon as possible. To be cautious, having fulfilled my essay, I hired a bodyguard. Shampoo Village was indeed remote. After landing, we took a car, but it couldn't go all the way in. Eventually, a kind woman who had gone to the county to shop took us along and brought us to the school gate. The rusty gate creaked in the wind. It was recess. A group of children were playing in front of the classroom building. At the center of the crowd stood Regina. She looked nothing like the girl in the photos Orson had sent. No. Regina wore a clean yellow jacket, proudly seated in the middle like a queen. A little girl handed her a shuttlecock. She glanced at it in disdain. That's filthy. I'm not playing with that. Let me tell you, I'm going to the big city soon. I'll have loads of toys there. Other kids chimed in immediately. Yeah. I heard from Orson. A big boss from the city is coming to pick up Regina. Wow. Regina. Can we go to the city with you? Regina basked in their admiration, pride written all over her face. Of course. I already said. As long as you don't play with Pamela. You're my friend. Then she snorted loudly in the direction of a corner. The kids around her followed suit. Don't worry. We don't play with her anymore. Yeah. Pamela stinks. Stay away from her, a child said, pinching their nose dramatically. Then Regina suddenly remembered something. Jumped up and said. Last time, Orson even made me wear her clothes. You guys don't know how awful they smelled. As she spoke, she picked up a stone and threw it toward the corner. What are you looking at? I'm talking about you. Following everyone's gaze, I finally saw the girl in the corner, a smaller girl hiding behind a pillar, silently taking the abuse. Stop that. I shouted, seeing the group of kids move in on her. I ran toward them and knelt in front of the little girl to check for injuries. Only when I got close did I realize she was wearing the very same tattered pink coat from the photo. Regina had obviously put it on just to pose and look miserable. The little girl took a few steps back when I approached. Head lowered. Not saying a word. So small. Shrinking into herself in front of us. My heart ached. I reached out to pat her head, but she stepped back again. I smell bad, she whispered. Even from a distance. She had heard what the other kids said. Before I could say anything, a voice came from behind. Pretty lady. Who are you? I turned to see Regina. Her face had completely changed, now full of innocence. Her big eyes sparkled with fake purity. Anyone seeing her would think they had misunderstood her. Pamela, are you okay? We were just playing a game and accidentally hit you. Right? Seeing I didn't respond, Regina walked over. Face calm. Tone sweet. Just moments ago, she was full of scorn. Now, she was all concern. But I knew her too well. The crueler her actions, the more innocent she acted. Is Orson here? Please ask her to come. I didn't want to waste time with children. Looking around, I spotted a student already dashing toward the office. Soon, without a low sigh, a plump woman came hurrying over. President Celine. What a surprise. Kids. This is Miss Celine, the one I told you about. All those books and supplies last time? They were gifts from her. Thank you. Big sister. Wow. You're so young. And already a big boss? The chattering voices rang in my ears. Looking at those innocent little faces, my anger slowly faded, replaced by a wave of helplessness. Children saw the world in black and white. They didn't even realize that what they had just done was isolating another classmate. But what about the adults who were supposed to guide them? I turned to Orson. When I arrived, I saw the children throwing stones at her. That's dangerous. Haven't the teachers taught them not to hurt their classmates? At the mention of this, the little girl named Pamela beside Orson lowered her head even further. Orson didn't even notice her until I brought it up. President Celine. You may not know this, but we don't have many recreational facilities at our school. This is how the kids usually play. They're all from the village. They're rough and tumble by nature. Not so delicate. He waved it off with a smile, without even bothering to understand what had really happened. Oh right. President Celine. You're here to see Regina, aren't you? Regina. Come, yeah, this is the big sister who's going to help you. Hurry and say thank you. Orson pulled Regina out from behind him. When I looked at the two of them, their matching smiles sent a chill down my spine. I smiled faintly. No rush. Orson. Nothing's been decided yet. Orson. This outfit looks a little familiar to me. I gently pulled the little girl behind me closer and brushed the dust off her clothes. Oh, that yes. Yes. That's Regina's. She was afraid you'd think less of her. So she saved up for a long time to buy a new outfit just for today. She gave the old one to Pamela to wear. Nice try explaining. When I saw Regina squeezed into this outfit earlier, I thought she hadn't bought new clothes in ages because of financial hardship. I crouched down to meet Pamela's eyes. Sweetheart. Tell me the truth. Did your teacher say that? Is this outfit yours? Or Regina's? If I wasn't mistaken. There was a flash of hatred in the girl's eyes when Orson made up that story. It's not true. Big sister. This is my outfit, the girl said. Her voice tinged with tears. My dad bought it for me a long time ago. One day, the teacher told me to give her my jacket. And she didn't return it until the next day. I didn't even have a blanket to cover myself at night. It was so cold. The little girl tugged at the hem of my shirt and poured her heart out. A blanket? You don't have one to sleep with at night? Knowing the weather was turning cold, I'd specially arranged for blankets and mattresses to be delivered here. No, her voice grew smaller. Pamela. Why didn't you tell the teacher you didn't have a blanket? Orson quickly cut in. Oh, President Celine. As soon as we got the bedding you sent, I had the kids come get them. Pamela must have been too playful and forgot. It's my fault for not reminding her. Orson looked full of remorse. Don't worry. Pamela. Your teacher will bring it to you today. I stared at the changing expressions on Orson's face and almost laughed. What a waste of talent in rural education. She should go win an Oscar. No need to trouble yourself, Orson. Looking at the small hand clutching my coat, I made up my mind. Your name is Pamela, right? Would you like to come with me to a city to study and live there? It was obvious who truly needed help. As for Regina, I looked at her again. The resentment and unwillingness in her eyes were plain as day. You can't take her. Orson didn't manage to stop her. Regina rushed in front of me. Orson said if I wore her clothes and took a couple of photos, you'd take me away and buy me toys. Regina glared at Pamela hatefully, reaching out to tug at her clothes. Well, I didn't even need to say anything now. Orson hurried over, looking at Regina with exasperation. You child. What nonsense are you saying? Oh? Orson. When did I ever say that? The message I sent clearly said I'd reply in a few days. And yet they'd already come up with this whole fantasy? Yes, heading for so session. Yes. It's my fault. I just thought Regina was so pitiful and wanted to comfort her a little. I thought you were due. The pause was just long enough to make me seem like a person who broke promises. I did feel sorry. At first. But after coming here, I looked at Regina's brand new clothes. It seems this young lady doesn't really need my help. But don't worry. I won't neglect the children here. The weather's getting colder. I've already ordered another batch of down jackets. They'll arrive in a few days. Give a slap, then offer a sweet date. Orson opened her mouth, wanting to say more with Regina, but now that I'd said that, all she could do was express gratitude. It's getting late. Why don't you stay in the spare dormitory for the night, President Celine? Head back tomorrow. Seeing that I was about to leave, Orson hurried to make me stay. I was curious what they'd try to do overnight anyway. Alright. Then I'll trouble you. The nights in the village were especially cold. I looked at the small girl curled up on the neighboring bed. I couldn't imagine how cold she must have been without blankets or proper clothes. Worried for her safety, I secretly had my bodyguard bring her over. At this moment, she was lying there, eyes wide open, sneaking glances at me from time to time. She looked a bit guilty, which made me laugh. I couldn't help but sit down beside her. Pamela, you haven't answered me yet. Do you want to come back to a city with me? Yes. The dorm had no light, but her eyes sparkled, and when she spoke, she revealed two little tiger teeth. Her sweet demeanor softened my heart. All right. I'll talk to your family tomorrow. See what they think. Sis. I don't have a family. Her voice was startlingly calm. I froze. I'd asked about her family earlier only because she had mentioned her father. I'm sorry. She tilted her head slightly and continued. Sis. I'll tell you a secret. My dad was a policeman. He caught bad guys. He was amazing. But one day, he went to catch a really bad guy. And he never came back. She lowered her head. The innocence in her voice made it hard to breathe. The little girl without any family, living alone in the village. No wonder even her clothes were so old. Your dad was a hero. I wasn't good at comforting others, so I just gently patted her shoulder. She quieted down. For a moment, only the sound of insects chirping outside could be heard. It's late. Time to sleep. I didn't want to continue the topic. I tucked her in and listened to her breathing gradually slow. Just as I lay back down, a soft rustling sound came from outside the door. The sound was faint but lasted for several minutes before fading away. At the same moment, I received a message from my bodyguard. President Celine. Someone really did sneak into the girls' dormitory. 3 men, 1 older man stayed outside while the 2 younger ones went in to search. After a while, they came out and said something to the older one before leaving. They looked like locals. So my instincts had been right. But if their only goal was to make me choose Regina, why go after Pamela? Get some rest. I don't think leaving tomorrow will be so easy. Sure enough, just after dawn the next morning, someone banged on the dormitory door. When I opened it, I saw a woman being tightly held back by a bodyguard. I recognized her immediately. Regina's mother. I had seen her twice in my past life. In my memory, she was a quiet woman with a frail body. But now she was fiercely pulling at the guard's hand and shouting in a full voice. "Who are you?" "I'm looking for President Celine." "Why are you holding me?" Well, it hadn't been a wasted trip after all. It looked like the real drama was just beginning. I signaled the bodyguard to let go, ready to enjoy a good show. But to my surprise, the woman suddenly dropped to her knees in front of me. "President Celine, I beg you, please help my daughter Regina. She's such a good girl and does so well in school," she cried. "It's just that I'm a useless mother and our family is too poor. Her brother's no good either. You helping Regina would be helping all of us, please. Take her with you." I took a step to the side to avoid her. Was she trying to set me up? More students had gathered at the school by now, and her shouting began to draw a crowd of villagers. Seeing the growing audience, her cries became louder and more dramatic. "President Celine, Orson said you'd already picked Regina. How could you go back on your word?" Regina cried all night. She reached out to tie my clothes, only to be firmly held back by the bodyguard. I stepped away and glanced at the child by her side. Sure enough, Regina's eyes were ringed with dark circles. The nearby villagers chimed in. "Yeah, boss lady. You promised the kid you should stand by your word." "That's right. We all helped take care of Pamela anyway. But Regina's really got potential. It'd be a shame to waste it." "Help take care of?" I looked at Pamela, clearly a head shorter than Regina. Skin and bones, and felt my mouth twitch. Strangely though, even if the villagers didn't seem particularly fond of Pamela, they also didn't want her to leave. I had held Pamela's hand since we left the school. Now, I could clearly feel it trembling slightly in my palm. My gaze swept over the crowd of faces in front of me, each one making me feel more irritated. Let me make something clear: I never promised anyone anything. I tightened my grip on Pamela's hand. Now, I've got to plans. I believe in fate. And I feel a connection with Pamela. So one option is, I take her with me. Of course, I won't ignore the other children in planning to renovate the school. And if possible, help fix the roads in the village. The moment I mentioned road repairs, the noisy crowd fell silent. Or, I can leave right now and go somewhere else to find my fate. People know how to weigh benefits. The rundown school buildings desperately needed repairs. And if the roads were fixed, travel to the outside world would be much easier. The crowd began murmuring again. But I wasn't in a rush. I simply stood there, waiting. Finally, heading fulfilled me. "Oh," someone spoke. "Well, since Pamela's fated with President Celine, she'd better behave well in a city." Others quickly chimed in. And the wind shifted instantly. You, village chief, you have to speak up for us," the woman screamed, dragging Regina back with her. They stopped in front of an old man. "President Celine. That's the man from last night," the bodyguard whispered to me. Interesting. What was it about Pamela that made the village chief sneak out at night to steal a child? "Well, we meet again, village chief." Seeing him about to speak, I smiled and greeted him like we were old friends. He looked confused. But I continued. "Still, it's better to get to bed earlier. Staying up late isn't good for your health." We were a bit far apart, but I could see his beard trembling. The woman was now frantically whispering in his ear, while Regina stood with her head down, face unreadable. "President Celine. The car has arrived at the village entrance," the bodyguard said, putting away his phone. I turned back to Pamela. "Do you have anything else you want to bring?" The little girl shook her head. Her dorm room had been completely bare. After one last glance at the crowd, I turned and left, hand in hand with her. We boarded the plane. "I'll talk more when I'm back at the company. Oh, and this matter must be thoroughly investigated." I sent the message to my assistant and glanced at the girl beside me, who looked tense. Noticing my gaze, she gave me a shy smile. "Big sister. This is my first time on a plane. It'll be over soon. Just a short flight." "Pamela, what do you want to do when you get to a city?" In my past life, after I brought Regina back, she stayed home for 2 days, playing with every toy in sight. Then she kept pestering me to take her to an amusement park. I was busy at work and suggested the nanny take her. But she threw a tantrum insisting only I could take her. I had assumed she was just nervous in a new environment, so I gave in to her every demand. I don't know. The little girl tilted her head. Thought for a long time. Then shook her head. Big sister. You're amazing, so young and already a big boss. Do you think I can be a boss when I grow up? She looked so serious that I couldn't help but mimic her tone. Why do you want to be a boss? Because then I'll have money. And if I have money, I can buy lots of things for other people, just like you bought books and blankets for us. All traces of fear had disappeared from her eyes. Now, they sparkled with hope for the future. Pamela, are you saying you want to help others when you grow up? Yeah. Her innocent expression melted my heart again. I reached out and patted her hand. Well, you don't have to be a boss. No matter what you become. As long as you do what you can to help others. That's enough. She nodded, seeming to only half understand. But was soon distracted by the view outside the window. Pamela safe and joyful. Her parents must have chosen that name in hopes that she'd live a peaceful, happy life. I'll make that wish come true. Thinking about her father made my heart ache again. According to Pamela, he had been a young policeman who died in the line of duty. Wait, something was off. If her father had truly died in the line of duty, there should have been a pension or compensation from the government. But Pamela had never mentioned any such money. She probably didn't even know it existed. So where did that money go? Thinking of the village chief, the teacher, and the villagers' strange behavior, a bold hypothesis began forming in my mind. Back home, I gave the little girl a quick tour of the house and let her explore on her own. After my shower, I came out to find her curled up on the sofa watching cartoons, giggling at the screen. From the kitchen came the smell of freshly made dinner. Such a warm, beautiful scene. If only it weren't for the barrage of work messages blowing up my phone. I cursed under my breath and went into the study to take calls one by one. If this has happened more than once, why does it keep happening? If you made the mistake, you made the mistake. Why didn't you review it properly as the supervisor? I pointed out a few glaring errors and couldn't help but scold them harshly. A knock at the door interrupted me. I thought it was the housekeeper calling me for dinner, but when I opened it, a small figure stood there timidly. Big sister. Dinner's ready. I really had been yelling too loudly. The little girl stood nervously at the door, clearly frightened. I'm sorry. Did I scare you? It's just a minor work issue. Pamela, go ahead and eat first. I tried to smile as gently as I could. She nodded and ran off in her slippers. Her little footsteps echoing down the hallway only to come rushing back moments later. Big sister. I'll study super hard. When I grow up, I'll come help you. Her small face was scrunched with frustration, as if blaming herself for not being able to help yet. I couldn't help but laugh at first, then I froze. Those words sounded eerily familiar. In my past life, I'd heard something similar. It was after Regina graduated from college. She came into my study with a serious expression and said she wanted to help out at the company. At the time, we were in the middle of a major personnel reshuffle, and I was struggling with a staff shortage. When Regina offered to help, I was relieved. I trusted her completely and gave her an important position. In return, what I got was one misappropriated fund transfer after another. I nodded gently now, hoping that this time, I wasn't wrong about people. Getting Pamela into a new school wasn't difficult. By Monday, she had already settled in. I was a little worried she might not keep up with the class. But to my surprise, after a small quiz, she slapped to perfect score papers on my desk, with a proud look in her big round eyes. She didn't say a word, but her face screamed. Praise me. For a second, I almost imagined a little tail wagging behind her. I'm not the type of guardian who believes in strict, supercilious parenting. I immediately had the housekeeper make photocopies of her test papers and had both copies framed. One for my study, and one for the office just right. Maybe it was Pamela's infectious joy, but I found myself in an unusually good mood that day. Even when the vice president came in to report that our quarterly performance was underwhelming, I simply listened with a smile. At the end of the report, he glanced at me hesitantly, then sheepishly asked for leave. His child had failed a test, and the teacher wanted to meet the parents. I casually wiped dust off Pamela's framed perfect score and said, Go. Go, your child comes first. Life went on peacefully. Day by day. Marked by her perfect scores. Until one day. My assistant walked in with an investigation report. As I flipped through it. It confirmed exactly what I had suspected. Pamela's father did have a pension benefit. But it was allocated to the village. Supposedly to be passed on to her. Unsurprisingly. The village head had embezzled it. Well, not entirely for himself. A few families with close ties to him got a cut. The same families. Incidentally, hadn't felt my obsessor. Who had jumped in to stop me from taking Pamela away. They were likely afraid that if Pamela left the village and slipped out of their control, the whole scheme would be exposed. I sneered. Back when this was just a suspicion. I had asked Pamela what she thought of the village head. She had just come home from school. Bouncing with energy. And answered cheerfully. Grandpa village chief is really nice. Sometimes he invites me to eat at his house and even gives me old clothes to wear. Giving away what already belonged to Pamela. Pretending it was charity. The thought of this little girl being tricked for so long. Still holding on to gratitude. Sent fury surging through me. Contact the lawyers. I said to my assistant. For this kind of scum. I didn't even need to strategize, one lawsuit would be more than enough. I want every single cent he took. Paid back double. I could have handled it all myself. But I felt Pamela deserved to know. When I got home. Only her room was lit. From a distance. I saw her little figure bent over a book at her desk. Auntie said you've been studying all afternoon. Take a break. I placed a warm glass of milk on the table. I'm not tired. Sis. She said. Seeing her so diligent, I felt a bit guilty to break the news, but she had the right to know. I had someone investigate the village. I began. Pamela put her book down and listened quietly. After your father passed. He left a pension for you. I've always wondered where the money went. Now we know. The old village chief thought he'd covered his tracks well. But jealousy had long been brewing in that village. I simplified the findings and explained everything clearly. Pamela said nothing. She just lowered her head. And her small shoulders began to tremble. I suddenly felt I might have told her to soon, maybe. I should have waited until she was older. Or until she was more settled and secure here. Sis. She looked up. Her face streaked with tears. Panicking. I grabbed tissues. It's okay. It's okay. I'm here. No one will ever hurt you again. Whatever she had been holding in finally came pouring out. They always said I was a burden. Her voice broke with more sobs. The village chief made me go to their homes for meals every day. But whenever they saw me, they'd frown. I was afraid they'd get tired of me and kick me out. I never dared take too much food. And I always did chores for them after washed dishes. Laundry. Picked firewood. The room was silent except for her quiet voice. Her head resting on my shoulder as she spoke, years of pain and repression spilling out at once. Sis. Why do they hate me when they took Daddy's money? She sobbed. Why? Because they're greedy and heartless. Because every time they saw Pamela, their guilt gnawed at them. They wished she would disappear. So they could enjoy the money in peace. But that wasn't something Pamela could understand yet. I gently patted her back. She cried until she was exhausted and eventually fell asleep on my shoulder. Since coming here, she always had a smile on her face. On nights when she missed her father, she'd hide away and talk to him quietly. But tonight, she fell asleep with puffy eyes and tears clinging to her lashes. It made my chest ache. Find the best lawyer and resolve this as quickly as possible. I messaged Dee, wiping away her tears. That night, she seemed to have nightmares. She clung tightly to my hand and wouldn't let go. I lay beside her, soothing her in whispers. My assistant worked quickly, and before long, we took the village chief to court. During the hearing, he kept trying to wriggle out of it, claiming he had only temporarily held the money. When the lawyer refuted every point, he switched tactics. Playing the pity card. I'm just a poor farmer. I never went to school. I didn't understand what I was doing. His pitiful monologue was so familiar. I almost mistook him for Regina's mother. Seems the tragic victim act runs in the same circle. I rejected any offers of settlement. The village chief had illegally seized a child's inheritance. He had to return every cent. And everyone involved would face legal consequences. And it was worth noting Orson was implicated too. Turns out, at school, he only showed care to children from families close to him. The rest he completely ignored. After the trial, I held Pamela's hand, worried she might still be sad. But the little girl looked up at our lawyer, her eyes shining. "Sis, can I be a lawyer too someday?" It was the little girl's first time clearly expressing what she wanted to do in the future. "Why do you want to become a lawyer?" I looked at her. Because the lawyer lady was amazing. Just now the village chief kept lying. And I didn't know what to do. But the lawyer lady listed out all this evidence and left the village chief speechless. She said it was called seeking justice. If I can become a lawyer, I can help more people. I can stand up for justice too. The determination in her eyes made me reach out and pinch her cheek. Then our Pamela is definitely going to be the best lawyer. Time passed in a blur of perfect test papers. In the blink of an eye. The little girl had been living with me for a year. That day, I was packing my suitcase in the bedroom. And the child was helping me fold clothes with a reluctant look on her face. "You're leaving tomorrow, right? When will you be back?" "We have exams this week. And then there's the parent-teacher conference." I smiled. Her studies had never been something I had to worry about. It's just a regular business trip. It depends on how smoothly things go. But I'll definitely try my best to be back before the conference. I'm looking forward to hearing the teacher praise our Pamela in front of all the parents. I gently pinched her pouting lips and flicked her chin. It took some effort to make her smile. She leaned against me. "Your trip will definitely go smoothly. Big sis." With blessings from my little scholar. The trip indeed went surprisingly well. Not only did I successfully sign the contract, I also expanded into other collaboration opportunities. President Celine. Such achievements at such a young age. I'm truly impressed. Zane let out a low sigh. A young CEO 3 years younger than me complimented me at dinner in an overly serious tone that was somehow ridiculous and funny. In my last life, this same man eventually became a major player in the business world and my fiercest competitor. Since I had the chance to live again, I came early during his development stage while others still underestimated him and signed a deal to eliminate a future threat. I smiled and clinked glasses with him. Just as soft piano music drifted from downstairs. I glanced down absently and froze. My grip on the wine glass tightened. It was Lyra. Why was he here? Since my rebirth, I had deliberately avoided thinking about him. I thought as long as I stayed away, I could lead this life, never meeting him again. But now, he had suddenly appeared before me. Of course, I remembered how we met in the last life. Back then, he was a senior at the Conservatory of Music, working part-time as a pianist in a restaurant. I was having dinner with a business partner too. And despite the noise, his music immediately caught my attention. It pierced straight into my heart. I had zoned out for a while at the table. My business partner noticed and teased me, asking if I wanted to meet him, even calling the restaurant owner over. That's how I first met Lyra. He was deeply passionate about the piano. To me, he was free and pure like a cascade of musical notes sleeping into my dull and tedious life. We got together quickly. With my intentional and unintentional help, he soon rose to fame, frequently invited to major performances. I always believed it was rare and admirable for someone to have a passion and stick with it. I placed him on a pedestal, shielding him from all the mundane worries of life. I only wished for him to be happy. As for money, I had plenty of it. Poor him. Despite being someone who had never even washed a dish, he still managed to collude with Regina to stage a car accident. At the moment of impact, he jumped out and stood there with Regina in his arms. The recordings and surveillance videos I'd uncovered of him flirting with Regina were like slaps across my face. My eyes turned red. In my last life, trapped in that car, the resentment, the unwillingness, the cruel irony, I had felt them all. Seeing the change in my expression, Zane followed my gaze. President Celine doesn't like his playing? I'll have someone send him away. With a wave of his hand, someone quickly escorted Lyra out. The restaurant returned to quiet. Suddenly, I laughed. Same scene. Different choices. From now on, Maybe Lyra and I would never cross paths again. And our fates had just been rewritten at this moment. In this life, I would keep my eyes wide open. I would never blindly trust anyone again. That thought lifted a huge weight off my chest. Amid the clinking of glasses and flowing conversation, I received a message from Pamela. Just as Zane raised his glass to say something, I looked up and interrupted. How did you know my little sister got first place in class again? I stayed in B-City just one extra night before rushing to leave the next day so I could make it to the parent-teacher meeting. But as soon as I got in the car, my phone rang. President Celine. Something's wrong. Pamela left the house early. But her teacher says she never arrived at school. My housekeeper said anxiously on the phone. Panic surged in me as I quickly asked for more details. I asked the driver. He said he saw Pamela enter the school. How could she just vanish? Pamela was never mischievous. She went to and from school on time every day. Unless someone took her on purpose. A cold sweat broke out on my back. I was about to call the police when the phone rang again. 5 million. For Pamela. Or you'll never see her again. The man's voice was deliberately lowered. I racked my brain but couldn't think of anyone I'd recently offended. Wait, there was the GPS. The smartwatch I got Pamela at the beginning of the year. It had tracking. I prayed she had worn it today. I opened the app. A small red dot was slowly moving. Thank God. At least I knew where she was. I immediately sent the call recording and location to the police. They quickly tracked the suspect's identity. Kane. I froze for a moment. My memory of him was still that of the honest, quiet man from my last life. The same Kane that the old lady claimed was Regina's useless brother. But in this life, I'd never interacted with him. So why the hell did he kidnap Pamela? With the location in hand, the police acted fast. They found an abandoned factory overgrown with weeds. Kane had no time to react before being tackled by police. The 2 men with him were also arrested. By the time I arrived, I heard the man, his face red with rage, screaming as he was pinned to the ground, while Pamela stood behind a police officer. Sis. Pamela ran to me the moment she saw me. I rushed to pull her into my arms, checking her all over. You bitch. This is all your fault. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't owe so much money. Kane shouted, struggling against the police. Dude. Get help. What the hell does your debt have to do with me? When I saw the scrapes on Pamela's arms, my eyes turned red with anger and I lashed out. If you'd taken Regina away back then, I wouldn't have had money problems. If I had money, why would I need to borrow from anyone? Kane was clearly drunk. A little out of his senses. His words made me laugh in disbelief. What did my money have to do with him? We found out Kane has a gambling problem. He owes a huge debt and can't pay it back. Looks like he was desperate and decided to resort to kidnapping and extortion. A police officer walked over with a file in hand. Suddenly, I remembered that in my previous life, around this same time, Regina had told me her brother had fallen seriously ill and needed a large sum for treatment. I glanced at the medical report and, without thinking much, sent money to her family. So all that money went into gambling. Huh? When the police started surrounding him, Kane suddenly sobered up. No, officers. It wasn't me. It was my mom. She's the one who made me do it. The officers exchanged a glance and kept pressing for details. A few days later, I got another call from the police. Regina and her mother had been brought in. When I pushed open the door to the station, I heard the older woman complaining in front of the officers. You tell me she's a big CEO with all that money. Helping one person is helping. But helping 2 is still just helping. Right? It's just feeding one more mouth. But she just wouldn't take Regina in. If she had taken Regina too, none of this would have happened. She spoke with such heartbreak. Like I was some monstrous villain. The officer across from her looked speechless and put down his pen. Ma'am. As far as we know, Celine personally paid to renovate the village elementary school and even helped repair several old village houses. Isn't it a bit much to ask for more? You don't get it. She has money and no one forced her to do any of that. She just wanted a good reputation. Right? Now everyone says she's kind-hearted. Shouldn't she be thanking us? At that point, even the officer didn't want to argue anymore. The woman was completely delusional. Every time they asked about the kidnapping, she just went off on a pity party rant. From her evasive eyes, it was obvious she knew exactly what had happened. It was only a matter of time before she faced the consequences. What really caught my attention was Regina, quietly sitting off to the side. The last time I saw her, her eyes were full of hatred, fixed on Pamela. But now, she just sat silently without a word. Sis. Pamela, as someone involved, had also been brought in. She walked straight toward me. Just then, let out a lull sigh. The quiet girl sitting nearby suddenly stood up. This is all your fault. All of this was supposed to be mine. Over the past year, I had poured my heart into raising Pamela. I cared for her every day, fed her well, and even got a bit addicted to dressing her up like a real-life doll. She no longer looked like the scrawny child I first met. Regina screamed and lunged at Pamela. I quickly pulled Pamela behind me. The officers also reacted swiftly and restrained Regina. What did she mean by that? Was it just her imagination, or did she somehow reincarnate too, and remember something? I stared at Regina's face. It was twisted with rage. Eyes locked on Pamela with a burning intensity that no 10-year-old should have. Regina. Snap out of it. Stop dreaming in broad daylight. I kept a wary eye on her, ready in case she tried to attack again. Sis. It's me. Regina. Didn't you love me the most? You bought me toys. Took me traveling. Hearing my voice, Regina's expression changed instantly, breaking into sobs as she cried toward me. Now that was strange. If she really had been reborn, did she really have the face to still call me sister, after everything she did in the past life? Seeing her so emotional, the police frowned and glanced at the muttering older woman beside her. Officer. If there's nothing else, I'll take the child and leave for now. Both of them were emotionally unstable, and staying longer wouldn't help anything. I took Pamela and walked out of the police station. Our Pamela really is the sweetest. If I'd known this would happen, I'd never have stayed in contact with them after bringing her back. The bunch of ungrateful leeches. Just thinking about what happened made my blood boil. I tried to help them, and it backfired. Pamela held my hand and swung it gently. That's just them being selfish and ungrateful. You've done so much for the village. Everyone else appreciates you. Like she was afraid I'd be genuinely upset. She started chattering about funny things that happened at school on the drive home. Somehow, my mood lifted too. Yeah. Regina's family really were outliers. And I had always done everything with a clear conscience. The police contacted me again. Regina had been emotionally unstable, and they had to bring in a psychologist. Under the psychologist's guidance, Regina finally opened up. She said she kept having a dream where she and I moved to a city, studied there, and lived together. I knew she was remembering the past life, but the psychologist didn't know that. She suspected Regina might be suffering from a mental split caused by emotional trauma. As her guardian, her mother was also suspected of verbally abusing her. In the end, Regina was ordered to receive psychological treatment. Her mother and brother, implicated in the kidnapping, were punished accordingly. That problem finally resolved. My heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. Over the next few years, Pamela kept bringing home awards and trophies. I even cleared a whole wall to build a trophy cabinet. Now it was nearly full. The company was thriving too. Zane had finally made it, joining the ranks of B-City's top enterprises. While everyone was still trying to figure out who the boss behind it all was, the two of us shook hands and cheerfully renewed our partnership. One day, during a meeting, the vice president was passionately presenting in front of the PPT. But I was completely distracted, constantly checking my phone. What time were college entrance exam scores being released again? Noticing my frowns, the VP's voice got quieter and quieter. Just as he was about to ask what was wrong, my phone finally lit up with a message from Pamela. I scored 6 points higher than expected. Praise me. JPG. She also attached a screenshot of her grades. Judging by past trends, that score was more than enough for the A-City law school she'd been dreaming about. Imagining how happy she must be on the other end of the phone, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Well said. I clapped the deputy director on the shoulder and laughed heartily in response to his confused expression. That's it for today. The new year's coming, let's give everyone a raise this month. I grabbed my keys and left the room, leaving a table of employees in short sleeves staring at each other in bewilderment. Pamela got into law school smoothly. After she started university, our contact became less frequent. Although we were both in a city, I still encouraged her to live on campus, and even rented an apartment nearby for her. Not because we were distant emotionally, but because I believed girls her age should grow wild and free. Youth should be spent with peers, having their own time and space. As for me, it was enough to quietly support her from the background. She never once let me down. She earned scholarships every year, only to donate the money each time right after receiving it. As I scrolled through her social media, her latest post was a photo from an on-campus debate competition. The girl in the picture looked confident and radiant. It warmed my heart. In my previous life, I didn't know her. I had no idea how hard life must have been for her in that village. But luckily, I got a second chance. And this time, she found her goal and shone all on her own. Months passed again. That day, I was sitting in my office in a tense atmosphere. I've said it before, this is a critical period. Everyone needs to stay vigilant. You never know what pitfall is waiting outside the door. What were you thinking? Answering a strange call and chatting with them for so long? Our new product was about to launch, but news suddenly broke out about the person in charge making inappropriate remarks. A heavily edited voice clip was going viral on social media, and the comments were filled with curses and boycotts. The product was being dragged into it. The person responsible looked filled with regret. Others began debating how to handle the crisis. But after a long discussion, no solution emerged. That's when the door opened. What we need immediately is a statement. I saw that the company already posted something saying the audio was edited, but that's not enough. A short-haired girl stepped into the room. I suggest we issue legal notice right away. The fabricated audio has already damaged both the individual and the company's reputation. But we can also use this incident to fuel publicity for our product. Holding her notes, she laid out her plan item by item. With a clear strategy, the others quickly got to work. The office returned to calm. I looked at the girl who had been talking nonstop and smiled as I poured her a glass of water. When did you cut your hair? The last time I saw her was during New Year's. She had long hair then. Looks cool, right? Pamela blinked playfully and flipped her hair. Compared to before, she looked far more capable with short hair. Very cool. And you looked cool walking in just now too. The sunlight had hit her perfectly when she entered, and she was glowing. She set down the papers and stood up straight, adjusting her outfit. Sorry I'm late, President Celine. With your skills, I'm sure every major law firm is fighting over you. Why choose to come work for me? After handling that incident smoothly with zero losses, and even boosting our publicity, the stock price had climbed. Pamela had officially joined the company. She organized her desk and smiled. I kept thinking about that night when I first came to a city. I was sitting on the couch, and you were in the study working. I went to call you for dinner and overheard you on the phone. Curious. When you opened the door, I saw your dark circles. You looked so tired, so busy. From that day on, I thought, when I grow up, I have to help you. You once told me, helping others doesn't mean becoming a big boss. Anyone can do what they can to help others. So, here I am. She waved her employee badge. This is what I can do. My eyes welled up with tears. I quickly turned around to hide it. After work, I took her out for dinner. Driving past a fork in the road, I suddenly stopped the car. What is it? Sis? Can we park here? Pamela looked toward a distant security camera. We can. That camera's broken. On this day in my past life, my memory stopped right here. It's been a long time. I don't remember much about what happened that night, just a blurry memory of Regina leaning against Lyra, smiling and saying, "Don't worry, Lyra. That camera's broken." I smiled. My fate was now completely different from what it once was. This year, I turned 35. I'd known Pamela for 15 years. Over those years, I had suitors. But my heart was always focused on the girl and my work. Even during moments of free time, I preferred to enjoy life alone. Thinking about how all my money in my past life ended up in someone else's hands still made my heart ache. For the company retreat this year, I chose the mountain village. With my help, roads were built in the village. And thanks to its geographic advantage, it had attracted many entrepreneurs in recent years. Now, it had become a tourist hotspot, with homestays and farm resorts everywhere. I wanted to take the girl back for a visit. Just as we were about to set off, Zane showed up at the company entrance in his flashy sports car. The window rolled down, revealing a huge bouquet of roses. Zane tilted his sunglasses and looked at me. I'm headed that way too. Want a ride? The city and the mountain village were in completely opposite directions. I couldn't for the life of me figure out what kind of route made that on the way. I looked at him. Over the years, Zane had always stayed by my side. He'd confessed to me more than once. And even though I repeatedly told him I had no intention of getting married, he never gave up. I turned and caught Pamela giggling behind her hand. Maybe it was the weather. Maybe my mood suddenly. Zane didn't look so annoying anymore. Sure, I said. But bro, am I supposed to hold this bouquet for 3 hours? The sports car was tiny. I peeked in and saw no room for the flowers except the passenger seat. You could just take my car. It's bigger. I pointed to the van I'd just borrowed. Zane paused when he heard me. Then jumped out of the car, hugging the flowers as he hurried to catch up. Wait for me, sis. I picked up my pace and got into the van, rolling down the window with a grin. Outside, the girl was pouting, running toward me.